Oof, my camera just died. That was so weird. Maybe it's the ghost vampires. Hi everyone, and welcome to Sophia's lovely Halloween day. I don't know. I decided I am going to film this video in January. And this is the first video that I'm filming, so I have no idea if this is gonna be the first video, if this is gonna be the second video, if it's gonna be the third video, the 25th video. We just don't know. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 7 vampire stories that are reportedly 100% true. But before we get started, I'm Sophia Lovelace and I post paranormal videos, I post theater videos, I post funny videos. So if you like any of that stuff, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below to be notified when I have new uploads. I upload around once a week, sometimes twice a week, but, listen to this. For the month of October, I have a goal of posting 16 videos. So that means more than 2 videos a week, right? No, that math does not work. Okay, so there's 4 weeks in a month. So 8 times 2 is 16. So that's 4 videos a week. I'm planning on posting 4 videos a week for the month of October. And if you really like my content, I would suggest hitting the bell icon. That way you get a little notification that I've uploaded a new video, and you can just click on it and you'll be like one of the first people notified and you can watch it right away. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get into these vampire stories. I don't know if I've mentioned my love of vampires on this channel before. Like I said, I'm filming this in January, so I don't know what videos I'm gonna be posting before then. I don't know if I'm gonna be talking about vampires. Probably, because I love vampires. Yes, one of the first vampire novels that I read was Twilight, but I am grateful for that novel because then it introduced me to other series that I love, such as Interview with a Vampire, the book Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now, I know there's people in real life who claim to be vampires. Some of them are even YouTubers, but in this video today, I'm purely going to be talking about vampires that happened in history. Now, because these stories sometimes are from a very long time ago, sometimes 1,000 years ago, it is difficult to tell if these are 100% real or if they are just stories to warn people or just to freak people out because it's fun, or if the story is slightly in truth and then it just builds and builds and builds and becomes a much bigger story than it actually was. So just keep that in mind. Now, depending on which country, what region, what myth you're going with, there is other characteristics, but the main thing is that they have to drink human blood. There is one myth out there, I believe it's Ukrainian, that believes that vampires can turn into butterflies. So I'm just gonna be reading from an article. I'm definitely going to be linking it in the description, so if you want to follow along, if you want to read it afterwards. I didn't include all the stories from this article, however, because some of them I want to do an entire video on these vampires. And of course, I'm not going to be talking about Vlad the Impaler, the infamous ruler who inspired the novel Dracula, because he definitely deserves his own video. Number 1. Peter was a man from the 1700s Siberia who died. Except, according to some, he didn't really stay dead. Within 10 weeks of his death, 9 people died suddenly from a mysterious illness, and prior to their deaths, all accused Peter of being in their dreams. Peter's own son reported seeing him in the kitchen 3 days after his death, demanding food before he died mysteriously. I'm assuming they mean the son died mysteriously. The army was then called to and exhumed Peter's body, and it was said that his eyes were wide open and blinking. A stake was pushed through his heart, and it is said that a gush of blood came running out, which is disgusting, but that's what it says, and his body was burned. The people of the town then claimed that their dreams stopped. Now keep in mind that this story is from the 1700s, and the article doesn't specify what decade in the 1700s. this story is set, because I'm a huge history fan and the 1700s is like my century. I love the 1700s because there is just so much going on in the 1700s. That's why I'm wondering if this story was set in the early 1700s, because the Salem witch trials happened in 1692. So if this was in the early 1700s, I could 100% believe that this is just mass hysteria, because there are several instances around the world in that time of people freaking out because of supernatural occurrences that turned out to be nothing. But what do you guys think of this story? Make sure to leave your opinion down below, and for the rest of the stories on this list, let me know what you think. The Alan Wick castle vampire actually predates the term vampire. The events were recorded by an English chronicler named William of Newburgh. He reported the story of a man who returned from the dead after he died while spying on his cheating wife. So apparently, according to the article, he was standing or sitting on a roof watching his wife cheating on him, and then he fell off, and since he was so mad in that moment that he died, he came back as a vampire. So apparently he was spotted walking around the area. People reported that he was just a rotting corpse and he was just going around spreading disease and illness. Eventually the priest grabbed some people from the village and went to the vampire's grave. They opened it and stabbed the corpse with a shovel. And apparently warm blood ran from the body and confirmed their suspicions that it had been drinking blood of the living. And the article also states, remember, this was almost 800 years before Bram Stoker's Dracula. So Bram Stoker's Dracula was written in 1897. So therefore, this happened in the 1000s, the 11th century. It stated that they burned the body and then the attacks ceased. So people stopped getting their blood sucked out of them. Good stuff. The next story is about a ghost vampire. Sava was a Siberian vampire who lived in an old mill and fed on travelers and millers who approached the mill at dark. And according to the list, he simply stopped attacking people. So there wasn't any story of anyone going out and killing or getting rid of this monster. He just stopped attacking people, so people stopped talking about it. Meanwhile, the mill where he lived was passed down generation after generation. Each new owner too scared to prepare the building until it eventually collapsed. Now, locals report that he's awakened from a long slumber and roams the Siberian countryside, looking for a new home. And that's not just superstitious locals making this claim. The actual council themselves are the ones who put out the warning. Of course, it's probably a publicity stunt by the area's tourist board. We hope. Like the article states, I'm a little bit suspicious of this one because a ghost vampire is a lot harder to prove / disprove. Like a physical vampire, it's a lot harder to prove, but just saying, oh, it's a ghost, ghosts are invisible, you can't see it, but it's there, is a lot easier. This event happened in the 1800s when the Cranwell family took up residence in Corglen Rain. Lady Cranwell noticed strange lights in the garden below, but thought nothing of it until she woke to find the lights at her window were actually eyes. So Lady Cranwell gets into a fight with this vampire in her room. Her brothers hear her screaming and they're fighting, and then within the fight they run and leave the estate. Then a little while later, the two brothers decided that they were going to go back and kill the vampire. And how they did it was they got Lady Cranwell to pretend to be asleep in the room she was originally attacked in. When the vampire tried to come through the window again, the brothers jumped out with pistols and shot at it. It screamed and ran off into the night. The next day, the brothers gathered an angry mob and searched the graveyard until they found an open crypt. Inside were gnawed-on bones and an open coffin containing a rotten corpse with a recent bullet wound. Needless to say, they burned it. Now, I don't know about the story because it just seems so stereotypical, so classic vampire. Like, how would you look at that story and not think it was a vampire story? Like, it just, I'm wondering for some reason if this family wanted a publicity stunt for some reason. And it says here that it happened in the 1800s. So again, I don't know if this was the late 1800s, so when Dracula came out, or if this was the early 1800s, because during the mid 1800s, the supernatural and death started to be something that people were talking about, and it started to be something that people were interested in. So this one I'm a little bit suspicious about, but I thought I would include it because you guys probably want to hear it. So, this one's like really creepy, but we're gonna read this. This one gives me chills. I think it's pronounced Jure. Grando was a peasant from Istria, Croatia, who died in 1656. He allegedly terrorized villagers in the area for 16 years after his death. Official documents from that time name him a Strigon, the local name for a vampire. I wonder if this word is related to the word strigoi, which is in like the Vampire Academy series as like the evil, immortal vampires. And I wonder if also this word is related to the Witcher series with a striga, which is kind of like a vampire creature. And of course, The Witcher was originally written in Polish, the book series, then it became a video game, and now it's a freaking awesome television series. So I love how this article included that they called it by its local name. So even just seeing that word, I already have a different image of what kind of vampire they are going to be talking about, because typically when you see that word, Strigon, or something along the lines, you know that this vampire is not messing around, that they are terrifying. Now, this vampire's case is interesting in vampire folklore, as it was the first time in history when the word vampire was officially applied to a person. According to the locals, he would wander the village by night. Whoever's door he knocked on would die. Eventually, people got tired of being terrorized by this undead monster, as a local priest took a stand and went face to face with him. He was no match for the priest, who warded him off with a cross. The priest and some of the villagers chased him back to his grave, dug him up and decapitated. They removed his head. So that story is pretty spooky. I don't know why I am so terrified of that one, but for some reason that one is more disturbing compared to the last story that I shared. The Hunder priest was a nickname given to an 11th century priest of Melrose Abbey in the Scottish borders. He was given the nickname because of his favorite pastime, hunting on horseback with a pack of hunting dogs. And the article also mentions Hunder priest means dog priest, which makes sense because Hund means like hound. Hund is dog in German, and then it's like hound in English, and hound means dog. The story of the vampire of Melrose Abbey is based on sometime around the year 1138. Perfect! Finally a date in this article that I can work with. So in real life, a lot of people didn't like him, and he was kind of not the nicest, kindest, most ethical person. So when he died, he became a vampire and began drinking blood and terrorizing people in the abbey. So when he died, he started drinking blood, and people claimed that he was able to turn into a bat. And it says in the article that the priests were content to let him run around being all undead and stuff until he started bugging someone, a woman, and then they were like, wait a minute, you can't do that. Stop that. And eventually the frightened monks and priests banded together in order to bring him down. But they literally let him run around for months. So why now do you... Okay. So they hit his head with an axe, then they cremated him, and some legends state that his ghost still haunts the abbey. That one's another spooky story, but then again, it is also hard to prove ghosts or disprove ghosts. So just saying, oh yeah, he's a ghost now,
this place is totally haunted with a vampire ghost,
is, you know, just harder to disprove, because the nature about ghosts is that you're not always seeing them. Now this one is quite interesting, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to tell you why I think it's interesting, or maybe you can figure it out while I'm reading why it's so interesting. This tale started with the rumor of a vampire with iron teeth was at the Grobel's graveyard, and oof, my camera just died. That was so weird. Maybe it's the ghost vampires. So the next story is set in Scotland, in the Grobells graveyard in Glasgow, Scotland. The vampire apparently had taken 2 children. Within a few hours, the graveyard was full of children with makeshift weapons like sticks and knives, hunting for the vampire. So think like It Chapter 1, and they're trying to go after Pennywise, and they literally don't have the resources to do so, but at least they're trying. It's the thought that counts. I mean, these kids are probably braver than I would be in this situation. The authorities blame the occurrence of the hysteria on the influence of American comics like Tales from the Crypt. But since this has been pointed out, there are no comics from this period featuring vampires with iron teeth. Was there some truth in this iron-toothed vampire prowling the graveyard at night and feeding on children? Was this vampire imaginary, or had it just been scared off by the sight of dozens of armed children, excited by the prospect of beating and stabbing vampires? So what do you guys think about these vampire stories? Are they true, or are they just imaginary? If you want more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and remember that I'm going to be posting lots during the month of October, so you might want to go subscribe over there to be notified when I have new uploads, and also make sure to hit that bell icon so you are the first to be notified when I have a new upload. And I think that's it for today, and